Everybody, this is Carl back again for another comic book review in preparation for the new Loki series coming next Wednesday. We'll be discussing a 4-issue comic run that I did enjoy because I'm starting to read some Loki stories around that time. It was really I won't say I'm into Loki, but it's just that I was trying to read up more on Loki and try to get into him a lot more as a character, besides just being like a Thor or an Avengers villain. And it came out with this short little issue run called Vote Loki. And the writer Christopher Hastings and artist Langdon Foss. Now, of course, I think it was close around the time. It was published around definitely in 2016. I just don't know if it was, well, we was inundated with the election cycle at the time. Of course, we didn't know how bad it was gonna get at that moment. We knew it was gonna suck with Trump, running for president, but it's just that we didn't know how bad it was gonna get. But I'm glad we're out of it though. But yeah, Vote Loki was just a very intriguing issue, to say the least. Not a bad idea. This is around the time when Loki started to evolve past just being just a run-of-the-mill villain. He's showing a bit of growth. I mean, in the comics right now, he's still in that not full-blown superhero or anything like that, but it's more anti-hero-ish. So I think he falls in that category. At least in my opinion, he's in that category. So he's not a full-blown villain. He's just Loki, just doing his thing now, but he's not evil. Well, we're following this we're mostly following the this reporter. What was her name? Nisa Contreras. Pretty sure she's Puerto Rican, but when we're following her, she was pretty much just a young lady, just in her teens at the time, at least in her early teens at the time, when there was another Avengers battle with Loki, and the demands in the neighborhood. And this is kind of one of the things where when the champions led by Kamala Khan and Miles Morales and Ironheart, it was it started being a little bit more acknowledging the fact that the Avengers by and large don't pick up after themselves when they're fighting these fights. Even though they're avoiding casualties, buildings and businesses are being demolished by the fights themselves, and it's you're leaving people almost homeless and destitute. But it's kind of something that was brought up in the first season of Daredevil, where it's you have one of your fights here and you don't realize the aftermath or the hole you're leaving behind, where someone like Kingpin comes into play to try to exploit that. And that's where the champions come in. It's we're not going to be like that. We're going to actually pick up ourselves and be amongst the people and try to actually help. I don't read the champions. I'm not sure if they actually do that. I'm pretty sure they did it at first, but I don't know if anybody out there actually like the champions. If you are, please leave a comment below and let me know if you enjoy the champions comic runs. If you want me to read a particular champions comic book run, leave a comment below and I would consider it. But yeah, she grew up to be a reporter, and one moment in particular where she's is doing a presidential election. two candidates, one lady who I believe might be like a Republican, she's wearing red, and then a guy who's probably like a Democrat because he's wearing blue, just to make it very distinct. Then all that, interesting, but it's just like what revolves around them is interesting. That of course, Loki's hidden amongst the crowd. I guess he was just more so that bored. He we'll figure out what he was really doing there, but it's just he observing this presidential debate, and then of course Nisa, not realizing he was speaking to Loki, he was in disguise, voicing her disdain for, like, okay, you got these politicians, one way or the other. It was speaking towards, like, when this was written, and it still speaks today, that how people have that grievances against those politicians, that even when you're like thinking they're supposed to be like voting for them because they had the same interest as you, and they actually was going to make some changes, do something, but they don't follow through. It's empty promises, and you end up getting people like Trump because they and not to get all too political, but this is something that's like, it's probably one Loki story that I've always found like very fascinating, and I actually did enjoy. I just don't care for the art. Almost, it's kind of like you got these the eyes of these the people here are like doll's eyes. It's very creepy looking, and just like, I mean, it's probably one of the few arts in a comic that I don't particularly like looking at, but I like the story that's involved in it. Hydra agents burst in unexpectedly. Now Loki comes in, saves the day, and then people are just like taken aback, like, we were saved by Loki of all people. And then he started later on announcing that he because, well, he's pretty much later on, it's kind of like was his he thought it was cute that these so-called politicians are dancing around these people's issues and everything like that. He just doing this, mostly for the show, but it's just like he had, of course, it's Loki. He always has some kind of machinations, but this kind of particular machinations, doesn't turn out the way you think it's going to turn out. He, of course, he's trending. He made the speech about how, like, these politicians are just giving you empty promises, dancing around issues, not telling you what they're actually going to do. Well, at least dealing with me, that I'm lying to you. I won't, BS the fact that I'm lying to you. And it's like, and people eating it up, which is like crazy, right? At the time you would think this was crazy. Now it's just like, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's just like, Loki is, I mean, of course, since this point moving forward, he isn't known as the god of lies. He doesn't want to be known by that moniker anymore as the god of lies. He's a god of mischief, or a god of stories is what he goes by at this juncture since then. But there's a little funny little clip here, like these little news these panels where you got these different news outlets. There's one panel in particular that's obviously a reference to SNL, and you got people poking fun of that. And he's trending so much that people prefer to vote for him as president rather than the two other candidates that they don't trust because they're that typical politician. J. Joe Jameson talking with him. But then, he has something like these callers, and then Nisa calling in, laying into him. It's like, she of course has issues with Loki because of what he did when he was an actual villain, and because of him and his fight with the Avengers, you ruined like my particular neighborhood. I grew up there, and you straight up demolished it because of one of your little escapades against the Avengers. he teleports in, away from the his interview with Jonah and directly into her bedroom. It's like, uh just making, like, telling her, like, I'm a changed man. I'm not into that anymore, and I'll prove it to you, kind of situation. So he invites her to come to his campaign office, and this is one of those moments where it's like, is long prior to this, there's been moments when Loki, when he dies, he sometimes reincarnates. One moment he reincarnates back as a kid, and then there's another moment he comes back as a woman. This is one of those moments when he comes back, at least changes his appearance to, make Nisa feel comfortable. So he changes into his woman persona. He has Angela as his bodyguard, which I thought was pretty funny. And so she's still like gonna, Nisa's still like, after the interview, he, of course, the fact that she laid it bare about the interview, Loki, being Loki, twists it, and people just love him even more so, and it just infuriates her even more. Until then, of course, there's a female Jane Foster Thor, and of course at that time people did not know who she was, but we all knew it was Jane Foster Thor. And that's another thing. It's like another reason why I want to bring this up, because it's a nice little way to segue into, a nice little Thor Love and Thunder, where we're gonna have Jane Foster Thor in this. I didn't read much of Jane Foster Thor. I didn't find it. I mean, it was interesting, but it's just like not something I was like seeking out as far as like a reading. But if you have reading recommendations of Lady Thor that you want me to check out, that you think is pretty good, please leave a comment below and let me know, and I will definitely look it up. But during this moment, that's what we were dealing with. We're not done with like the main Thor Odinson at this point. This is like him in his unworthy Thor phase. And of course, she comes knocking on Nisa's door, like thinking that she's touting Loki up to be the president. And of course, she ain't having none of that. Like, why you're making it seem like Loki will be the best candidate? I don't want him. Like, why would anybody want him to be president of anything, let alone the United States? And it's like Anissa trying to explain herself. It's like, yeah, he twisted it. I don't want him to be leader of this of the US at all. And of course, Nisa, of course, is bringing up like, why can't you just beat him up and take him back to Asgard so we don't have to deal with him? It's like, well, at this time, Asgard is being run by somebody else. I'm barely welcome there, and he's definitely not going to be welcome there. And they don't really care what he does on Midgard as long as he's out their hair. So she has to deal with it on her own. And then, of course, Lady Thor cannot do anything about it herself, because he's technically not breaking any laws. Of course, then but she does give Nisa a clue, and found this, like, those little, like, those door handle things people lay, like, menus for like certain restaurants or whatever on your door knob. She was the only one with this Loki particular brochure hanging on her door in her apartment, and nobody else has that on their door. So it's obviously like a clue being handed by Jane Foster Thor to follow up on herself. She personally cannot handle it. And so she goes to the particular address, she finds these people, these cult members of Loki, worshiping him, got this whole altar thing going on, worshiping some kind of goat. As soon as he plastered that on the internet, he spins it again. It's like, I told you guys from the very beginning, I am a god, so of course I'm gonna have worshippers, and it's nothing I can is. What do you want me to do about it? They're gonna worship me. I have no control over that. Is pretty much free will at that point. It's like, and it's like, sad part is he's kind of right. It's like he has no control over it. He's technically a god, a Norse god, but a god nonetheless. And there's like a lot of pantheons that have their fair share of worshippers. Whether or not that god answers is a whole different ball of wax, but he has no control over it. But another spin again. But yeah, so another, to Nisa's dismay, he found a way to spin it around, and people once again love him even more. He's technically not lying, and it's like that's how good he is. It's like, it's just like with like Lucifer the devil. It's like technically he does not have to lie. You think he's like, the fact that he's a snake and forked tongue and all the other stuff is like, you would think he's lying because he's telling you the hard truth that you're denying yourself. It's just the way he spins it is just a factor. It's not necessarily like a bold-faced lie. Like the best liars is, the best lie is the fact that you don't probably not have to lie. You just lead people to think you're lying. The fact that they don't want to hear a certain truth. The way they perceive you. And third issue, she's following up on a lead about those Hydra agents for the longest time. Those supposed Hydra agents was in a coma after Loki handled them at that debate conference. Now they was on like the once they woken up out of their comas, they was being transferred via prison bus to a facility, and then the bus blows up. All those Hydra agents were dead. So it was like another cover up, because like she smelled something wrong, and the fact that it's like something or someone went out of their way to make sure she does not talk with these people. And then of course throughout this whole entire event, we're dealing with like Latveria, because at this time Dr. Doom was supposedly dead, or I think this is right before he does his infamous Doom issue where he's like had like a short stint of being like a good guy, which I really want to read that and review that for the channel, because I love that. I wish they kept that long, just like with Lex Luthor during the DC Rebirth. I really wish they would have kept a little longer with good Doom and good Lex Luthor for a little bit longer than they did. It's just like certain writers just want to like, no, they got to be bad guys, put them back to the status quo. It's like, you don't even bother let this arc thrive for a little bit longer. Like seriously, it's like it was like a very interesting and I loved it. Was like a short issue, probably like 5 to 7 issues of infamous Doom, and it's like it was really good, man. And I actually love that art in there. But anyway, right now it's people like it's like amongst like a civil war in Latveria, but people still beholden to Doom and others who are rebelling. And then of course Nisa, of course, one second here. Nisa striking down another lead, finding that Loki, under disguise as like one of the rebels in Latveria, causing further commotion and between the two, just in his own way stopping like the civil war, where like other politicians are like being asked like, how would you handle this situation in Latveria? Like one person, you know, talking about like the lady was talking about, oh, what was it, like I think one of them said like, oh, we'll handle this diplomatically, we'll talk with these people, figure out what the issues are, and then handle it accordingly. And that person's like, yeah, we'll talk with them, but we'll we'll make sure that we're let them know that we're not gonna submit or allow this kind of chaos to go unchecked kind of situation, because we don't want that spreading out, because people are dying. It's no different from what is going on with the Middle East or in real life or any other nation that's a little bit war torn. But it's a nice little comparison. It's like, Loki will handle it his own way. He's not going to sit there and like, he says, he was like, how do you put it? Because it's like a slick way. He does got that silver tongue, man. He's like a slick way of responding. One of the lady president candidates said like, and I never said I wanted to have a Skype meeting with the Doom's children. That's one of the terrorist groups. Do they even have Skype? Where did you come up with that? And Loki says like, are you saying you wouldn't prefer a diplomatic and peaceful solution? And she's like, yeah, well, of course. And then he says, then there you go. You'd rather have a Skype meeting with the terrorist leaders. Why are you so surprised? Yes, I made an ad that lied about you. Why am I the only one being called out on it? So yeah, so it's like, he twisting everything, people's words around. It's like, yeah, I want to have like a diplomatic discussion with these people. Yeah, and like you have like, oh, so you would rather have like a talk with terrorist people? So you'd rather speak with terrorists? It's like it's like it was no win scenario, and with him. And I kind of want this, because the reason I also bring it up, because it's been like clips of Loki dressed as like Vote Loki outfit from this comic, and I expect at least one episode where he does his whole Vote Loki thing with the horns and everything like that. I cannot wait for that. This is gonna be great. Of course, he tricks the rebels to get into Doom's secret stash of weapons, which of course they don't know how to do because they're very dangerous. It's not your typical gun, and most of them are magic based. And so it was like a big explosion, killing both the terrorist group and the rebels. So he hightails it back, even though it's been like spotted by Nisa, who videotaped him secretly. She posted. Now, at first you would think like everybody's turning on Loki, but then by the time the plane landed back into America, everybody's loving him again. It's like, at least he's handled that stuff, and now we don't have to worry about that. He took out two radical groups all at once. I was like, damn, he's bulletproof, like Teflon. And like, he's being beloved so much, even Nisa's mother talking about how much she's loving that guy. And of course, Angela and Lady Thor, after one failed attempt with technically like a suicide bomber, but with a superpower variety, this man who's just glowing and tried to blow up Loki, but Angela stepped in, took him out, and threw him in the air to blow himself up. Then using Loki, let him know I saved your life. I want something in return. So he handed her information about this location where they all three ladies meet up in, and that's when she Nisa figured out that the man she was speaking with in the first debate was Loki in disguise. but he also staged the Hydra attack in the first place just to get to manipulate everybody to run the country. Of course, there's a few outliers that still love Loki, but now like a bunch of protesters fighting amongst each other. People who want to Loki as president and those who do not. Loki, of course, convinced, well, at least tricks Nisa into having like he waved his hand and everything magic into a arena where he can have like a one-on-one discussion with audience, and he's telling her like I'll be direct with you, I won't dance around any issues or wherever like that. And then they start hitting him with like real questions like you would hear from actual debates, like what are you gonna do with healthcare, what you're thinking about, like the gun laws and all the other stuff. And it's like he has no political experience, which something like a lot of celebrities should know. The fact that you need some political background and some experience in the political arena before you just up and decide you want to be like a president of the United States, because there's certain things you're gonna have to know about that's not privy to a lot of people, and it's hard work. And of course he flips out when he couldn't answer them all, and then of course he loses support pretty fast. But it all turned out to be like a complete like I said, machinations. Loki never intended to be like president. He's always expecting to lose, but he set all this up just to have Nisa, because she's getting a call from J. Jonah Jameson's assistant, wanted to like bring her on, get her own like network and all this stuff, because this is like almost like a long con to do a good thing for a person, where Loki announces that like I'm believing, like, yeah, from this little minor discussion that he had with her in this debate, because he was just around, but because it's the only way I could think of, because like how would he know the specific person and what he did to her? He did a lot of nasty things to a lot of people, not just her, but he just happened to be there hearing her story, and then finagle a way to like help her out and try to do right by her in some measure. And I just like this line he's telling her. Actually, she's like, what what is it? As like she says, like, if you're so sure you're lost, shouldn't you be making a concession call? I'll let them sweat a minute while California's still getting counted. So this whole experience got you your own cable news show, huh? I wonder, who would believe that in my quest to right the wrongs of my past, I staged an entire presidential campaign simply to help make the random destruction of one little girl's home lead to a brave woman's meaningful career speaking out against bad politics. What? No, you are definitely full of it. I did this, not you. You're sure? Maybe I know that sometimes the best thing you can do is to affect change on a smaller, more individual level. Maybe one shouldn't put all their values, hopes, and ideals into one big thing that couldn't possibly be everything you wanted in it. Bye, Nisa. Yeah, so yeah, he's like in a way, trying to do right. It was like he did it his own way, but he did a good thing for one person. And it's kind of like, what I remember from like the Bruce Almighty movie, whereas like Morgan Freeman's character guy mentions like uh 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 parting soup is not a miracle, Bruce, is a magic trick. A single mom who works two jobs but still finds time to take her kid to soccer practice, that's a miracle. uh oh no, it's not about the miracles. It's like that it was Evan Almighty. So I'm thinking of Evan Almighty. He mentions that uh, how can you change the world with one act of random kindness at a time? And so it's pretty much is like affecting change on a smaller scale, like he mentioned. It's like he did a good thing for this one person who will affect people on a larger scale in a good way. So it's just like it was a nice thing. It was a nice. I never knew how it was going to end with Loki. And when I read this ending, I was like, that's a nice ending. That was a nice little short little thing, nice little intimate story with Loki and what he's, how is he affecting people. And it was like an amazing thing. I thoroughly enjoyed Vote Loki. I highly recommend you at least checking it out. It's not on like the same scale as something like, I don't know, like Dark Knight's Metal or anything like that. But it's just a nice little quaint little story with Loki. If you want to read up on some Loki, that's a good one. Especially since it's gonna like has a nice little probably gonna have a nice either a scene or a whole entire episode that's referencing this comic. So I definitely want you to check out this comic. So you'll before the series starts, so you'll probably get the reference if it comes up in the first couple of episodes. At least one of it's gonna be coming up in 8 episodes. I just don't know which one, but it's only 4 issues. It's a quick read, and thoroughly, I still like it. It's like a great Loki story. Nice little intimate, quick, and yeah. So don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Let me know if you have read Vote Loki. Tell me what you think of the story, the writing, the art, what you want for me to review as a comic. You definitely leave a comment below. Follow me on my Patreon, www.patreon.com/talkativecarl. I have like a few tiers dedicated for comic book reviews. Check those out, and hopefully I'll see you guys. I'll do another Marvel comic next week. It's going to be like 5 issues about Moon Knight. I want to do like a Moon Knight one. Then next month I'll probably do a couple of more DC comics. But yeah, take care everybody, and I will see you all soon. Peace.